Welcome, everybody, to Epic Conversation number 8 of 2022. Today I'm here with Clayton Olson, who is a fellow coach of mine. We're in Creator Circle together. Thanks for joining, Clayton.
Thanks for having me, Heather. And I love that I'm finding out that I'm number 8. Eight's one of my favorite numbers, and it's my number in numerology as well. So, uh,
Really?
yeah, what a coincidence.
So Lila was number 7, and she felt the same way about number 7. She was like pumped to
Interesting,
be
huh?
7. Yeah,
Cool. Well, I'm glad
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
only in the single digits still.
Yeah, you're one of the first. I invite my favorite people. You're on the list.
Love it, love it.
So let's kick this off by you telling us a bit about you, the work that you do.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah, cool. So I am a coach, and I help people come into deeper alignment with themselves, with all parts of themselves, so that they can create extraordinary relationships and businesses that they love. And the businesses that they love piece is kind of this new addition that's been forming and really coming online over these last few years of working with people. And I found just how integrated and related working with people around relationships are, as well as working with people around business is. There's such a connection there. And yeah, I've been coaching for a total of, well, let's just say this. I've been formally coaching, professionally coaching for about 10 years. I've been really deep into self-development and becoming a more aware human being, going through courses and getting introduced to stuff like NLP for about 20 now. But had to cut my teeth in corporate for a decade before I felt like I had the courage enough to leave and start my own business.
Yeah, well, there's a beneficial experience to that, right? I feel like people learn so much
Yeah,
about, yeah, from
there
working
is.
with other people that way, right? That's relationships. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
totally. And also, like, for myself, doing things that I really didn't want to do and that weren't aligned, and
Mhm.
feeling what that was like and having that as a reference experience. Because my corporate work, towards the end of it, I felt like it almost killed me.
Yeah,
And
getting all the way to the end of that, right?
yeah,
That's like getting yourself out is the evolutionary experience that you need to help other people,
yeah,
right? Through this
yeah, it was
process. Yeah.
definitely a rebirthing process for myself to come out the other side and just have this such a firm line in the sand of never going back into the type of environment that I was in. And never, I mean, truly what I think I was also saying was never going back to the person that I was in
Right.
that environment, because I was so out of alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and isn't it amazing that it is kind of impossible to go back, right? You can
Yeah,
pick up old patterns and habits, but like once you've, right, once you've had a rebirth, right, you're a new baby now.
yeah, yeah, totally. One of the things that I thought was really fascinating too about leaving my corporate career was I did think that, on some level, like, it changed everything, right? Like, I stepped out, I started my own business. I also had a mentor that I was working with. And what I started to experience 3, 4, 5 years in was that even though I had externally the type of freedom that I was wanting in terms of creating my schedule, there was a way in which I internalized or insourced the boss that I had in my corporate world into my own mind. And he became like this inner voice that was driving me. And so I still had these experiences where I was hitting these places of burnout. And I ended up having to fire that boss, that part of myself.
Yeah.
And he still pops up from now and now, from now and
Mhm.
now and again, and to
Yeah.
tell me uh, that I'm not doing well enough, or that I need to do more, or that I need to keep executing. So I dance with it from time to time, but I'm much more conscious of it.
You're not the first person that I've heard of who we kind of have these voices of our parents in our head when we're younger, right? And then when we come in to adulthood, we tend to replace them with our bosses, right?
Mm,
With the new, oh, look, a new authority figure that I can kind of torture myself with in my own head, right? Or that I can take on the philosophy of. Yeah, that's fascinating.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
hey, and now you get to be your own boss, which is a whole nother experience we can get into. But
Yeah.
I'm interested right now in talking about how you got into inner work, right? So was it through this rebirth experience of leaving, you know,
Yeah.
was that at the same time, or you said for 20 years you've been
Yeah.
doing inner work? Like, how did you get started? What kicked it off?
Yeah, I was 18 actually. And I was, I I just imagine having a kid who was as wild as I was in my teens. And I really hope that I don't,
Hmm.
because I know that I put my parents through hell. I was definitely, um, I think, running with some interesting crowds in high school and doing a lot of experimentation with psychedelics, and um, really, I always had this thirst to expand my consciousness, but it was like really raw
Yeah.
and ill-formed, and there was a lack of wisdom and direction there. Um, I had an alcoholic father growing up, and his chaos and the way that he showed up in the household uh, was a real. It created a reactivity in me where I felt like I was consistently for the first 18 years of my life reacting to him and managing myself around him.
Yeah.
And so that kind of pressure cooker was definitely something that was having me want to escape and also want to grow. And what ended up happening is right as I turned 18, he got diagnosed with terminal stage 4 lung cancer
Mhm.
and was diagnosed with only 6 months to live. And so for the summer of 2001, he was okay, but was in denial about it. And then he ended up catching a cold and died within 2 weeks. And
Wow.
I was there for the whole thing. I hadn't gone away to college. I decided to stay at home because the family was in a really big transition there. And I ended up having a really deep, um, just experience around his death, that just left me with more questions than answers. I had an experience running into him after he died. It was a very deep spiritual experience where, like, I woke up one morning and he was standing at the end of the hallway, and we ended up having a conversation about like his life and why he is still hanging around in the house. And I thought it was a dream, and then I was like, okay, well, maybe it was a lucid dream when I started like looking more into it. So then I started really diving deeply into lucid dreaming
Uh-huh.
and started working on that so I could have more answers as to what actually did I experience. And then I came across NLP and hypnosis. And NLP is neurolinguistic programming, and it is the study of how language creates reality, and the different ways that we talk to ourselves create the experience that we're currently in, um, and how we create the world. And so the main thing that I got from NLP at 18 was this like renewed sense of hope, because for the first time in my life, what I was actually experiencing was that, and what I was understanding, starting to really grasp, was that the events that happen in my life aren't the same as my experience in life.
Mm-hmm.
And those two had always been married together, that whatever the event is, that
Yeah.
there's essentially one way to respond to it, and not just respond to it, go deeper. There's one way to make meaning of it.
Yeah.
Like the meaning making process in the event were so blurred. It was just like, oh, like my father died, of course I'm a victim, right? Like
Right.
there's rather than actually suddenly seeing that there is a way in which I can use this circumstance and I can create with it. And so that insight around neurolinguistics, which is something that my mom, she gave me the book, The Structure of Magic, and asked me to read it because I was in a pretty dark spot. And that opened up this whole journey that I've been on now for 20 years. And I didn't want to be a coach. I wasn't trying to be a coach when I was that age. I really felt like there was something fundamentally wrong and broken with me, and was blaming myself for a lot of ways in which how my dad treated me or how my dad was in the family, unconsciously, some consciously, a lot
Right.
unconsciously. And from NLP, I got into more of Tony Robbins, who was a lot of real mainstream NLP. I got into like Sandler sales training and started reading other books on spirituality and awareness, which all seemed like they intersected with NLP.
Yeah, they fit. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in many ways. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, maybe now I'm going to go out and I'm going to be this like empowered individual. I kind of got high on the juice of like self-development. And I was like, I'm
Yeah.
going to make a bunch of money. I'm going to get into sales, and I'm going to just live the super empowered life, kind of the Tony Robbins style. Um, and one of the things I didn't realize in that was that there was a lot of actual bypassing that was happening
Yeah.
in commitment, bypassing some of these earlier traumatic things that happened to me that I really needed to look at, and almost just
Mhm.
wanted to smear over with concrete and build on top of, like build this new identity of myself on top of. And
Yeah.
so that work really didn't start until I got into my late 20s and early 30s as I started my coaching practice and realizing how much work I actually had to do still.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of a synopsis of it.
Yeah, no, I love the journey. I love the different modalities that you mentioned. And um I wanted to come back to your mom. You said she gave you a book. So
Yeah.
do you feel like she already had a little bit of an awareness of
Yeah.
this kind of work? Like,
Yeah. Very much so. She was in Al-Anon for 12 years.
mhm.
So very familiar with the 12 steps, and it was a deeply spiritual person, having chosen to stay in a marriage with my father who was suffering with that disease, and had to, she used it as I think as a crucible to really work on her own internal landscape. And so
Yeah.
she brought a lot of that. She brought a lot of spirituality, paganism,
Mhm.
ritual,
Yeah.
that bled into my sister and bled into me as well. I rejected it a lot. I kind of just,
Yeah.
I thought it was funny and entertaining, and I didn't think too much of it in my teens. But as I got older and things started getting more serious, it was something I started to add into my personality more and more.
Yeah. So, you mentioned like it sounds like your first kind of awakening, which it sounds like you have in common. Maybe this is the first awakening that we all have, right? Is that things happen in our lives, and the awakening is that there's more than one way to interpret them,
Mm,
right? There's more than one way to look at the same stuff. And I think when we're younger, we've taken on the ways that our parents look at things or our teachers or whoever,
yeah.
right? And we're like, this is how it is. This is how you think.
Yeah.
And there's this transition that happens,
Mm,
um, for me, I don't know if it's everybody, but that it's what you described that other people that I've talked to in these conversations have described is
yeah.
this first understanding of, oh, there's more than one way to look at this,
Mm,
right? I've been having this one way and I thought that was what the world was.
yeah.
But it turns out there's millions of ways to think,
Yeah.
right? When we look around in the world, all these people might be thinking in all different ways.
Hmm.
And to me, that's like a waking up to like the all the nuance in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that those other ways of looking at it are actually just as valid and
Mhm.
contain just as much evidence if you gave them the same amount of time looking for that kind of evidence as you
Yeah.
do your current perspective,
Yeah.
right? Like not just that it's like, oh yeah, there's a way that we could spin this and we can look at it, half glass half full, or like
Right. Right.
the
Right. Right.
positive or the silver lining. It's like, no, actually, we can see something as something completely different than how it has occurred to a previous version of ourselves, where it's
Yeah.
a completely different game and it's actually more real and more true than
Yes.
whatever spell you've been living in. Like
Mhm.
that kind of shift, which
Yeah.
I'm underlining for anybody listening to, that
Yes.
know that you get.
No, it's a more complete view of the world. That's what I feel like. I feel like I'm filling in puzzle pieces to get a more complete
Mm,
view of the world. I use this example. If I ask you what color is the sky, or ask 10,000 people what
yeah.
color is the sky, everybody says blue,
Mm,
right? That's not a wrong answer at all.
mm,
If I look outside right now, right, like I can find some blue sky.
mm,
But if you really took a moment and thought about the sky, turns out half of the day the sky is black because it's
mm,
night, right? And then if you're looking out at the sky, like right now, actually the sky's white where I am, right?
mm,
Because there's clouds. So are the clouds sky or are they not sky,
mm,
right? I think they're wet sky, right? So then you could talk about rainbows and sunsets and sunrises. And then this one time there's a tornado and the sky turned green and I took a
mm,
picture, right? So the sky is blue is not wrong. Like I feel like this is super common phrase now that like people are jerks, right? And um if I was going to coach someone around that, it wouldn't necessarily be like that's wrong, nobody's ever a jerk, right? But there's a whole other set of rainbow colors, right, that we can also look at and
yeah.
also use, right, to
Yeah.
describe the sky or the situation.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
love that example of the sky. for sure. Because it's not wrong, and it's also like not the only truth, right?
It's
It's
like
yeah,
it's less than 50% of it, right?
right. It's actually
Yeah.
less than 50%. Yeah,
Yeah. The
totally.
sky is less than 50% blue, but that's what we call it, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, how has what I'm interested in what piece of inner work wisdom,
Mm,
right? Or what principles have impacted your life the most? It could be a
mhm,
couple.
mhm. Yeah, so definitely that first one around
Mhm.
unmarrying the experience from the circumstance.
Mhm.
And I would say after that, um, I think this was always a it was always present with my study of NLP around just the power of language, but it really became evident when I started getting into landmark education and going through
Mm.
the landmark seminars,
Yeah.
where I started to just realize how important integrity was,
Mm.
and how important it is to speak and to act in a way that is in line with my word to my best ability. Obviously, I'm
Yeah.
going to make some mistakes. People are going to make some mistakes, but I never had such a respect for that until really I started going through Landmark, because I started to see not started to see it not from a moral standpoint, but from a utility standpoint, a utility
Right.
perspective. That the more that I'm able to remain in line with my word, the stronger and more coherent my identity becomes. And the more impact that I can actually have. And the way that that idea got broken down, and I might not be doing it justice, and that's great. People can experience it for themselves. They were going to go through like the advanced course in Landmark, but
Mm.
um, it's that my entire identity, who Clayton is, exists as a story. It exists as language, as a
Yeah.
narrative.
Yeah.
And so to respect myself is to respect language, because I
Mm.
exist as language. And so if I am saying something that's not true, or I'm doing something that's not true, or doing something that's different than what I say I'm going to do, there's a way in which I'm creating a compromise in the building blocks of reality, which are the building blocks of my identity. And so it reduces my power in the world. And so really making a commitment around this awareness of how important it is to speak in a way that feels true, and to find that
Yeah.
alignment from which I'm speaking from, and the impact that it has in my life, that definitely moved me into another level of, I would say, responsibility, personal responsibility, and how I show up. And also it had me trust myself more. It had me just naturally show up more confident. And it actually allowed me to start seeing other people more clearly, because I cleaned up the distortions that were present in
Yeah.
my perceptual lens of how I see the world. Because if
Yeah.
I'm out of alignment with the way that I speak and the things that I do, there's a distortion that I create that I look out into the world with. But when I
Yes.
clean that up, suddenly I can come
Mhm.
into contact with people, and I can actually see whether it's them or whether it's me, whether something's happening over there or whether something's happening over here,
Yes.
with greater clarity. So that was a big one. I'll just pause there. Any comments on that, or
Yeah, the thing that came up, that's so important, the lens, because I feel like when we start to get out of alignment or out of integrity, we do come up with all the stories about why and
Mm,
why we wouldn't do the thing that we said we would do, and
yeah,
and the feelings and things all under there, and that we absolutely project that on the world,
yeah.
right? I love where you went with that. And then the self-trust piece. I
Mm,
talked about self-love in February on some of these interviews, and self-trust is like the path to self-love, because if you can show up for yourself, that
mhm,
is loving yourself,
mm,
right? If you can trust yourself to do the thing you say you're going to do, right? Not like you said out of a moral place, just out of a this is what I do. This is who I am. This is how I show up. Then all of a sudden you're dependable,
yeah.
right? And that's the practice of loving yourself, is
Mm,
living in that dependability. Um, I think at the core. And so integrity and commitment, I think we don't always associate that with like self-love, right? But i
right.
think I think it's the other piece to it, it's the other half to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really powerful distinction, and I love the way that you're putting it with tying it in with self-love. And something that comes up too is it makes one a more powerful coach as well in
Mhm.
the world. And just, let's just say this, it makes one more powerful in relationship, whether you're a
Yeah.
coach or just whether you're in relationship, because if I can hold myself to a certain standard where I expect and believe the things that come out of my mouth as true,
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
I can pass that on to other people with my being, so that
Yeah.
when they say things that they want, or say things that they want to accomplish, or that they're going to do, I believe them
Yes.
with my being. And so
Yes.
one of my contributions then in relationship is I bring in unflappable faith to their capacity to create the thing they're saying that they can create.
Yeah.
Where if I'm not doing that for myself, and I have a habit of not believing what people are saying,
Yeah.
and when they say
Yes.
want these things, are going to create these dreams, I have it in my being that I don't really take them seriously, because I don't take myself seriously.
Because it's the same, right?
It's the same.
Because
Yeah.
you can't, the relationship with yourself cannot be different than the relationship you're having
Yeah.
with others. It's all the same filter.
Yeah.
It's all colored by the same beliefs,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you have talked to a lot of couples, I assume. You've been doing relationship coaching for a
I don't work
while.
with couples. Yeah.
Oh, it's just a single person about their
Yeah, I mean,
relationship?
it's about any type of relationship.
Uh-huh.
And it can be about, here's the thing, it started off working with people through breakups. So
Uh-huh.
people would come to me who are in this massive transition, their identities reconstituting on the other side of
Yeah.
this breakup, and they're picking up the pieces and
Mhm.
creating themselves in a new way, whether they're conscious of it or not.
Yeah.
Um, it's one of the most, I think, what can be really traumatic about a breakup too, is suddenly the future that you thought you were living into is gone. And now you're kind of staring into this gaping black hole,
Right.
and maybe feeling ill-equipped to fill it with
Yeah.
what you want because of the heartbreak. And it's just really transformative. And so I was working with people, helping them come into deeper rapport with reality. They're having a deeper relationship with who they were becoming, helping them come into greater relationship with what had happened as well.
Uh-huh.
And also helping them also on another level, like when we were working together long enough, helping them be ready for another relationship,
Right.
mining
Right.
the insights and the
Mhm.
wisdom from whatever it is that happened before. And then all of that work, I mean, I just realized is like, after having worked with a lot of people around relationship issues, just everything is relationship.
Yeah.
Being a
Yeah.
human being, and having this idea that you have an ego
Mhm.
automatically creates that you are in relationship with everything that's quote unquote not you. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
relationship is at the fundamental fabric of like learning relationship, and being in right relationship, healthy relationship, secure relationship with the
Yeah.
things that you don't identify as you, I think is a
Mhm.
key to actually being able to create and be healthy, and move through the world in a way that's frictionless
Yeah.
and joyous.
Yeah.
So when I talk about being a relationship coach, that's, I would say, the what I mean around relationship. And of course, depending on where people come to me from, like what they're asking about, like I will work with people around like very specific acute pain points that might be happening interpersonally.
Right.
Um, but it's always within this context of this larger whole that I'm looking at it through, because because all those things, it all plays into it. That's all connected.
Yeah. I mean, even you know, you left your corporate relationship,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That's a relationship that you left. You mentioned your boss speaks in your head, you know what I mean? There's so many similarities,
Yeah.
right? Between, yeah, no, that's fascinating. Um I learned this year how much um one person in a relationship can change the relationship,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I had a story before, and maybe it's like everyone I knew had the story that both people have to come and change and compromise and this whole thing to make a relationship improve,
Yeah.
right? But I think it's specific to coaching, maybe in my story, my new story, but this idea that I can show up differently and transform the relationship,
Yeah.
right? That one person can do their own work,
Yes.
right? And become who they want to be now,
Mm.
right? And then the relationship, right, can shift
A
in
hundred
major
percent.
ways.
A hundred
Yeah.
percent. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's an incredibly empowered way to be in relationship, because if you don't believe that, then you leave room open to be at effect of your relationship in a way that might have you feel like a victim.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's so just that stance. It's like, yeah, actually everything can change if I change. It's so true. It's
Yes.
so true. And it's just, it also, I think too, it brings, it actually, in some interesting paradoxical way, um, and it's maybe not quite so paradoxical, but just saying this kind of for the first time, it's like, it
Mhm.
allows you to stay in your lane and stop trying to change your partner.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And realize how powerful your lane is,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Isn't
Exactly.
that the work?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna just be in my lane and I'm gonna change everything,
Yep.
right? I'm gonna make everything better.
Yeah.
Everything, everything. And that's um so I call it like spiritual adulthood when you like come
Mm,
into like I create the world,
mm,
right? That
hmm.
whole thing. And so it is paradoxical that in order to create the world, I got to be in my lane,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
100%. I gotta like fill up this whole lane right here,
Hmm.
right? with me,
Hmm.
with me. Do you know, I use this, when we talk about being like full up of your own self,
Yeah.
I use this metaphor. Did you know teeth sweat? So when we have the right balance of minerals in our body, there's a pressure inside our teeth and teeth have pores and they like, the technical term is that they sweat. And when they're sweating, when we have this right amount of, I forget the minerals,
Yeah.
bacteria can't really get in
Mm,
because it's constantly coming out the pores. But if
mm,
when we get out of balance, when our inside's out of balance and we're not all the way filled up to the point where we're like leaking out, right? That's when bacteria gets in and decay happens, right? And we know
mm,
how far that can go. And I feel like it's the same with myself,
mm,
right? If I'm filled all the way up with myself, and we can call it love. I like to say that whatever grows the trees grows me too, right? So there's just love flowing through me. If
mm,
it's if I'm all the way filled up that it's coming out my pores,
mm,
right? And it fills up my whole lane, that's when it can sweat onto other stuff, right? That's when I really can change and really take ownership, right, of my impact.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. The image I got of that as you're talking about it was just like, in some ways, like a sun shining light, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's like light, like the sun's not looking, there's no darkness that's getting into the sun. The sun's
Right? Yes,
blasting
exactly.
out in every
Yes.
direction. Yeah,
Yes.
there's no darkness. There's not going to be a dark stream or trickle that's going to get in there. It's just
Yeah.
everything's being illuminated that it wherever it moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just the not that events that happen outside of us don't affect us, but um the idea that also our own darkness, we are the source of that too, right? It's like we're the source of whatever is inside of us,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And and the power in that, right? The ability to, like you said, we can use it um for you mentioned at the beginning, something happens and you can be a victim of it or not, right? And
Yeah.
there's these ways of looking at things where like, I'm a complete victim, and now we've seen, being in coach long enough, that you can flip that exactly around,
Mm,
you know, and the opposite's also true.
mm.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Byron Katie's work comes to mind in that,
right.
examining things from different directions and like seeing whatever it is that I think is outside of me, right, is
Yeah.
actually inside of me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then being able to work with it in that way. And
Right, loving what is. I'm interested in how you describe love, like what role that plays
mm,
in relationships.
yeah, amazing question. You know, my definition of love has it continues to change and upgrade and update.
Mhm.
And I have no idea whether or not it's empirically true, objectively true, but like
Yeah.
my thought of what love is love is actually it is a space
Mm.
where pure witnessing can occur.
Mhm.
Um, and so what I mean by that is that love in relationships is presence without judgment and attention, and really
Mm.
being with somebody in a
Yeah.
way where I'm looking at them with eyes of curiosity and openness and compassion. I mean, and I'm throwing some words around here that like
Yeah.
point to something, but they don't all quite capture it, right?
Right. Right. Is it capturable? Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's not really capturable. There's a in this one of the schools that I was a part of, NLP Marin,
Mhm.
one of their graduate courses taught something called FAA, which
Mhm.
is it's called full appreciation and awareness, and it is
Mhm.
a way of being with clients and just with life, in which you're looking at it through the lens of not trying to change it,
Uh-huh.
not trying to fix it, but seeing almost whatever it is that you're looking at as like a painting and a creation that was made by Leonardo da Vinci, or
Yes.
whatever famous
Yes.
artist that you put in there, that you look at it and you revel in it, even if there's something in it that's has some dark aspect to it, or there's a
Yeah.
struggle, or there's pain or conflict.
Yeah.
I'm not holding it from a place where it's evoking something in me that I'm hating or judging within myself, but rather I'm
Yes.
noticing what's coming up in me as I'm witnessing this thing, and then I'm working with this to love this,
Yeah.
and naturally loves that outside.
Yeah.
And so, that I think some of that was a piece of the puzzle in this,
Mhm.
as well as some of the, uh, I think, just different talks that I've listened to on non-duality around
Mhm.
this idea of what love is, and
Yeah.
I do think that more and more that love is almost like the absence of something rather than the addition of
Yes.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Do you
that's how I
think?
see it. I
To
call love the force that moves everything.
Yeah.
And I could get into all the balance of the forces, feminine, masculine, right? Like I could get into the whole explanation, but really, there's there's nothing outside of love, right? And being being in love with what is, right? Being, like you said, fully appreciating and aware of what is lets you be in it,
Yeah.
right? It's always here. So for me, I can be present with it
Mm.
or not,
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Mm.
loved your description of like being present and curious and looking at whatever is here, no matter what,
Yeah.
you know, as this is it. This is important. This is potent,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting when you said it's what moves through everything. Like one of part of my brain went to, yeah, it's like dark matter. It's like the things that is expanding the universe that we can't see, right? And
Yes. Yes.
we've got instruments
Yes.
like, what is this thing? And it's like, oh yeah, like what if it's actually just the fabric of love, like moving through everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the space.
Yes. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I um I have a couple clients that are, in really in pain, right? Like really in a tough spot. And my commitment is always to meet them with unconditional loving regard.
Mm.
And when you described um in a couple different ways what love is, I was
Yeah.
like, yes, that's what I want to feel when
Mm.
I'm with them, whether we're on a call or I'm just thinking about them otherwise, right?
Yeah.
And if I could bring that to their awareness that I know this moment's really potent in a way that right now doesn't feel good,
Yeah.
right? But this is the potency of life,
Mm.
right? Whether it's pleasure or pain or nothing or right?
Mm.
Like it's here. And
Mm.
there's something to be made from this. There's an experience to be had here, which is
Mm.
why we're here.
Mm.
Um, back to the sky metaphor. I don't know what color the sky is. Ask me, is it invisible? Like I don't know what color, what's true, but I know it's always beautiful because I
Mm.
show up that it is, whether it's a storm cloud, right? Or a
Mm.
tornado or a
Mm.
sunset, right? That's how I show up.
Mm.
That I don't even have to know how to describe what color it is. I
Mm.
can show up and experience beauty,
Mm.
right? And
Mhm.
that's kind of my wish for everybody on how think of how the world would be if we all showed up like that, right?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great, Heather. And I think like what I love about that too is, just to play with that metaphor. I think that sometimes, and maybe all the time, clients are uh, coming to the table and they want to talk with somebody, they're looking for somebody, whether it's a
Mhm.
formal or informal role, somebody where maybe consciously what they're asking for is like, hey, tell me what color the sky is, right? So, hey, can you
Yeah,
fix this problem
yeah,
for me, or tell me how to do this? What color is the
mhm,
sky actually? Or
right,
what's that thing in the sky? Is it dangerous?
right,
Am I unsafe? Like, what's this cloud? What's this thing this ball that's floating in the air, aka,
yeah,
right?
mhm,
And but what I think the unconscious and what maybe they're really asking for, without whether they are conscious of it or not, is, can
mhm.
you teach me how to see the sky as beautiful?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills, Clayton. That's exactly, yes,
Right, it's like
that's
not
it.
even about these other things. It's like, actually, can I
Yes,
change the way, can you model for me a new way of showing up to this
yes,
question that's been killing me, to where maybe I
yes,
don't even need to ask this question anymore, because I'm
yes.
when I see it as beautiful, the question
Mm,
ceases to exist around whether
right,
this thing's dangerous, or whether I need to watch out for that, or what the color of the sky is, and it's no
right.
longer a question worth answering.
Oh my gosh, that is the core of it. And that's when we get there, that's when we're at peace, right?
Yeah.
And it's beyond peace. It's peace and appreciation, right?
Mhm.
It's like that's when we're in love.
Yeah.
Isn't that when we can be in love with life?
Mm.
You know, I've said this, maybe this might be the third time, but I'm going to say it again because it's important. There is beauty everywhere,
Mm.
right? Just look any inch of the world,
Mm.
right? Any inch of your experience, there is beauty to be found. And it's actually a skill to
Mm.
not see it,
Mm.
right? Because it's
Absolutely.
just there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's really
Double click
talented.
on that for a moment. Yeah, say that more, like, because I think that's like a really good, that's a really uh counterintuitive point, that
Yeah.
it's a skill to not see it as beautiful. What do you mean by
Yes, these are
that?
skills
Yeah.
that we learned, right? So
Yeah.
when we hear our parents talk about other people or hear, talk about situations or with the complaining and with the critical analysis, right? With the negativity, right? Like those are skills that we picked up about how to see the world,
Mm.
right? To look at something, and I'm not saying it's not like innate, like we don't have all have this propensity inside of us, right? But to look at something in the world and focus so specifically on what's wrong with it,
Mm.
right? And to the point where we can't see the beauty, right? That's actually a skill that we learned
Mm.
because our eyes can see beauty if we just let ourselves notice it, right?
Mm.
If we just open our focus,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
can look out and see the storm cloud
Mm.
and be angry that it's going to rain because we had a picnic planned,
Mm.
right? And we can just be 100% in that. I don't care. Sure, go have that experience of your evening and look around at all the beauty that you're missing when you do, you know? I have no judgment. I have no, there's no moral judgment, right? About if you spend your evening angry about the picnic or if you sit on your porch and uh, look around at all the beauty that's available in every moment. It's just two different ways to be. And I think you're saying that coaching, what it really does, it doesn't specifically solve the problem that you don't get to have a picnic tonight, but it helps you just sit on the porch and look at the beauty of the world,
Yeah.
even in the storm, right?
Yeah. And that's, yeah, amazing, amazing, beautifully
Mhm.
said. And just to add to that, to take what you're saying one step further around what that perspective then does,
Mhm.
is I believe that it unlocks a certain resourcefulness to be able to
Yes.
figure out how to have a picnic even when it is raining, or
Right.
have a picnic in the rain and
Right.
have it be everything you wanted, if not more. So it stops us from falling into this contracted state where we start to spiral into more and more isolation, or further
Yeah.
and further disempowerment, but rather to step in and lean into everything. Because when things are beautiful, it's so much easier to lean in,
Yeah.
so much easier to lean in and use it and engage it and eat it up and consume it and create with it.
And it's a different practice, right? Than looking at things for the quote flaws or the
Mm.
problems,
Yeah.
right? It's a
Yeah.
whole new practice. That's why I love to work with people for a year. That's JP's mentioned. That's why he loves to work with people for a year,
Yeah.
right? Because we're so talented and so practiced at the practice of, finding
Yeah.
what's wrong and focusing on it and trying to whatever we all have different habits of how to extinguish it or get away from it or whatever,
Totally.
right?
Totally.
But but let's spend a year looking at the beauty of life
Mm.
because, just how your body operates when your mind is aware of the beauty in the world, right? Just that state of calm and peacefulness, like you said, it opens up a whole new world of what's possible just being at ease.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you can take what before seemed like a risk just seems like the next thing.
Yep.
What before seemed impossible just seems like, oh yeah, I'll do that,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Um, so this leads us really nicely into talking more about coaching. I'm interested in your experience being coached, right?
Mm.
How has you being coached, right? You've been showing up for coaching for a while. How many years now would you consider yourself having been coached?
Mm. Wow. I mean,
I
I
mean,
would say,
Landmark is kind of being coached, right?
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say probably 8 out of the 10 that I've
Mhm.
been, yeah. And then before that, I had a few coaches here or there for sure that were maybe more focused around like sales, or I went through trainings. But yeah, I would still say if we're just talking about like say in the last decade, I'd say 80% of the time I've had a coach.
Right. So yes, you've devoted lots of time and energy and
Yeah.
investment into being coached.
Yeah.
What keeps you coming back? Like, what is your experience being coached, and how does it continue to change your life?
Yeah, thanks. Great question. It's kind of like why one might have a mirror in their house
Mm,
before they leave, right? Is
yes.
um, there's a yeah, I once had there was a quote that I heard that you can't see your own eyeball, and so I'm someone who is in like yourself, I imagine, very much committed to my own personal growth and development, and I know that growth and development and choice and my ability to be empowered comes from greater awareness, greater self-awareness, greater awareness of uh, holistically what's happening with myself and just in the way that I see
Yeah.
things. And having someone to reflect back to me the places and the things that I'm believing that might not be true that I think are true
Hmm.
is absolutely invaluable, because then it allows me to get in the habit of questioning the the assumptions that I'm making that are putting me in a place that is unwanted and
Right. Right.
creating an experience that's unwanted. And so I keep coming back to it for that. I also keep coming back to it because um, I want to have more rapport with myself and with life. And there's only so much that one person can do on their own. You could read books, right?
Yeah.
You can go
Yeah.
through trainings, but to have a somebody witness you and listen to you and prescriptively echo
Yeah.
back what they're hearing and the impact that you're having on them through honest observation and inquiry, it's absolutely invaluable. I don't know any
Yeah.
relationship that one has. I mean, that one has it where that the purity of that kind of role is possible. You might be able
Yeah.
to set something like that up with your friends or a men's group
Yeah.
or a women's group, right? You might be able to have some of that from your parents as well, but there's a lot of just competing. There's a lot of different interests and
Yeah.
roles and responsibilities that are already there that there's a harmony around, and there might not be this wanting to upset the harmony in service of truth. And
Yes.
having a coach to hold the polarity of truth in one's life is just, yeah, it's a priceless experience.
Yeah. It gives such it's access to your own truth, right?
Yeah,
That's what you're saying about. Yeah.
great. Yeah,
I have been thinking about my own experience of DIY inner work, I call it, and then working with a coach, and um and then watching my clients kind of switch from DIY inner work, to coming to talk with me. And
I like that
there's
term,
this
DIY inner work.
it's DIY, right?
Yeah,
And
totally.
which I'm all about. Like I love, we're
Yeah,
we're handing
I'm
people.
all about DIY. Yeah, I'm doing
Yeah, yeah,
DIY
yeah.
all the time. Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah,
then when you get a coach, what I've noticed, and I'm interested in, I haven't said this to anybody else yet, so I'm interested in
sure.
your, take on it. What I noticed with the DIY stuff is that um, there's different polarities of how people, there's people that are very negative, and there's people that are so positive they're bypassing, right? So like there's different ways to be.
Mm,
And there's all these like Facebook memes or books, and I find that they're all kind of tailored to one specific issue. So if you're somebody who shows up and serves and serves and serves and serves and gives so much of yourself, then you see um the memes on Facebook about just give it 100% and give it your all and that kind of stuff. I just find that it helps people dig deeper
mm,
into the things they're already doing,
mm.
right? And
Can you give an example around that when you say it helps people dig deeper? Like,
yeah, so
yeah,
there's um you know a whole thing about the women that I worked with when I was doing Women's Circle, there was this tendency to overgive, right? This tendency
yeah,
to their moms, right? They just do everything, right?
yeah,
And so then when they see messages about being in service and um not um how like morally wonderful it is to do things for other people, they're like, see, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing
yeah,
it, I'm doing it,
got it.
and the meme says I'm doing a good job and nobody still appreciates me, and it just gets them, to me it takes them deeper,
Totally.
right?
Yep.
Into the extreme that they're already in. And
Mm,
I've seen it in multiple different directions, right? Where it's like, but the meme says, right? And I love the opportunity to work with a coach just for the fact that I can say to them, you're given enough, right? Let's focus on doing things for yourself,
hmm
right? And it, like you said, it's this mirror that comes that can really reflect, um, what polarity you've taken yourself to, right? I think we're all trying really hard to do
hmm
our best,
Yeah.
and I think that takes us sometimes to some extreme places, and that's where we get uncomfortable,
Mm,
when we show up
hmm
in our relationship and we give 100%, we don't ask for anything, and then our needs aren't met, right? Or, we could list a lot of other
Yeah.
situations people get themselves into.
Yeah.
But having a coach is finally being able to have someone come in and like, not specifically like a meme, but like this meme, read this one.
Mm,
This is what I think would help you.
right.
This is
Right.
this is the other side that you could use to balance you out. The wisdom
Yeah.
from the other side.
Yeah.
And
Integration.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. No, you need that reflection, or I think we can just take ourselves back to the places where we always go,
hmm
right?
Right. And feel justified in the process and find all the evidence to confirm
Right.
that what we're doing, we're on the, yeah.
We're doing it right. Everybody else is wrong or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so how has being coached changed your life? Like I'm interested in how you think you're different,
Mm.
right? Because
Oh,
you've been
wow.
coached.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, less fear. Less
Mm,
fear. Yeah, that's the first thing that my mind goes to. Less fear around the unknown, more anti-fragility
yeah,
around the my capacity to be able to be with anything and turn
yeah,
it into something valuable.
yeah,
Um, I feel like that's really been pronounced these last couple of years with COVID and just um, if anything, these last 2 years have taught me is it's really destabilized the ways in which I've unconsciously put authority outside of myself.
right.
And it's given me real permission and a pathway to find my inner authority
Yeah,
and follow like what do I think is true? What's right? Where am I going for evidence? Who am I listening to? What is good for me,
yeah,
and how does that relate to other people as well? How does that relate to the larger whole? And just it's got me, and I think that coaching has helped bring it back, bring a lot of things that have been outside of me back inside of me
yeah.
as king to then make decisions from. Um, I think another piece that coaching's given me is just uh, an ability to be with what's happening, um,
Mhm.
wherever I am in my life. Like I'm in the process right now of purchasing a new house with
Mhm.
my fiance.
Yeah.
And we are a situation like that we're in now. I think I would have had a very different response to it when I was younger.
Yeah.
I would have fallen much more into maybe some helplessness,
Mhm.
feeling victim of the market,
Yeah.
stressed out about the circumstance of just the way that things are right now. And what I find myself truly embodying, not as a concept, but as a way of just like anything that feels like that it might try to evoke that part of me that feels like
Yeah.
it feels helpless.
Yeah.
Uh, it's allowing me to be much more curious about that and actually see it as like a juicy experience that I get to practice being
Mm.
with. Or like, oh wow, like I'm noticing these feelings coming up. And actually, this is an opportunity for me to lean deeper into trusting life and to
Mm. Yeah.
retire my agenda of how I think things are supposed to look right now. Like,
Retire my agenda. That's
yeah,
awesome.
like this, like I think I had a real this idea of like, if things aren't looking the way that I want them to on my timeline, something's wrong.
Yes.
And I feel that I've really begun to just experientially detach from that to where
Yeah.
I'm getting it for the first time in my almost 40 years of being alive now at this point. That what I want may not be what's best for me. And also
Mm.
that like where I think my life should go might not be where it needs to go
Yeah.
for the greatest thing I'm committed to, which is my personal development and love and
Yeah.
a source of security for myself and those around me.
Yeah.
So that's allowed me to just let go of control and let go of the
Yeah.
reins a little bit more and not take upset so seriously.
And
And
when we're not so focused on the control,
yeah.
that's when we can see the beauty, right?
Mm,
That's kind of what you're saying. Like
that's
when
true.
we're
Yeah.
not so like, it's supposed to be like this. What do I do to get it there? What do I do to get it there? What do I do to get there?
Yeah.
That's, you know, um, one way to be. And another way to be is, I trust I'm doing what I can to move forward.
Mm,
And how is this beautiful the way it is?
mm,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great callback to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And what gold nuggets are here? Like about myself, like you
Mm,
said, when a feeling comes up, right?
mhm.
That you're like, oh, I haven't seen that one in a while. Recognize that, right? Those are little slivers of gold where you can love yourself a bit more,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
and
Yeah.
get whatever lesson, whatever wisdom, whatever way of being that you would
Yeah.
love to be into more nooks and crannies.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Yes. Something's coming up as you're talking to, and I'm just like realizing this as well is that, I've spent so much of my life, my younger years, trying to avoid feeling a certain way
Mhm.
through through
Yeah.
taking action, through creating, through making money, trying to get a certain title in my work. And I think what I have now, and what continues to come online more and more is, and this is still a daily thing. This is a daily thing, but if it's trending in a direction, it's
Yeah.
trending in the direction of being far more fearless and inviting of the things that I've tried to avoid feeling for so long, which
Mm.
has allowed me to uh, actually have a lot less fear, and a lot less taking action from a place of panic and desperation to
Yes.
to avoid myself.
Yes.
So that's been huge. That's been huge. And I don't even know what coaching is. I can't say like, oh, this was specifically this thing in coaching did that. It's more
Right.
like this is just the byproduct of what happens
Mhm.
through having somebody be with you and shine a light on all
Yeah.
aspects and not let you go to sleep,
Yeah.
right? And to
Yeah.
be there in the light of their consciousness. I think that's just a byproduct of this.
Well, so in each individual coaching conversation, aren't we inviting the things that we have not wanted to be with before
Yeah.
into the present?
Yeah, absolutely. That's
That's
yeah.
that's what we do,
Yeah.
right? And so to me, there's these two pieces to coaching where we like I hold this unconditional loving regard, and I know you do and JP does, right? This place of unconditional loving regard and
Yeah.
ability, practice of seeing beauty, right? Cultivating that space,
Yeah.
right? And over the year, you from being with us, clients, you know, learn to evoke that in themselves, right? And bring that. But then within that space, that within that peace that's in your body when you're there, that's when you're like, oh, I'm going to invite that thing that I've always been afraid of feeling,
Mm.
right? Because actually, aren't we kind of curious what's on the other side of that?
Oh,
Like,
totally.
wouldn't it be great to
Yeah.
have familiarity with that,
Yeah.
right? And to be buds now, whether it's grief, whether it's whatever, things about the past. Um,
Yeah. And I know in the moment too, it feels like there's nothing on the other side of it. Yeah.
right,
It feels like there's
right.
absolutely nothing, and that
What's
it's
the point?
yeah, and
Yeah,
it's a black hole that the more I feel
yeah,
it, go into it, the more I'm going to get stuck there, and I'm not going to get out.
yes,
And yeah, and that's interesting because it's it goes to it's funny this quote came up. Somebody said a while back that depression is um, someone who is unwilling to be sad.
yeah,
Like there's
right.
an unwillingness to actually feel the sadness. And so the depression is actually this kind of limbo state of
So
kind of
numb. Yeah,
a numbing, being stuck in the spot of actually not feeling it. And I equate that back to this, what we're talking about, this feeling where it's like, oh, I'm going to get stuck in this place if I go there. And it's like, no,
mhm.
actually, you might get stuck there if you don't go
If
there.
you don't,
Yeah.
that's what stuck is. Yes, yes.
Um,
If you don't feel the pain, right? That is stuckness.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Which, yes, awfully uncomfortable, right? Like, let's not do that.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. And it's another testament to our own power that we can um, be there for ourselves and for each other, right?
Mm,
Through any pain that we feel,
mm,
right? Like, let's see ourselves so powerfully. And this is part of, we have a coach that believes in us fully. And when we work with clients, right, like we believe in them fully, you can be with anything,
mm,
right? You
mm,
have, and I think I read something about, maybe it was Brene Brown. I'll have to look it up
mm,
specifically what it was, but anxiety is actually us being afraid we can't handle it,
mm,
right? And it's actually the belief that you can, and there's no evidence either way if you can handle it or can't handle it, right? But it's actually the belief that you can handle it
mm,
that gets you to try,
mm,
you know, to
mhm,
do it. And
mm,
so to me, that's what's so powerful is that when I'm with my coach, he looks at me like I can handle anything,
mm.
right? And he talks at me like, yeah, let's just face it. Let's just
Yeah,
do it right here, right now, because you can handle anything.
yeah,
And now I have that belief about myself, and now I have that belief about everybody,
yeah.
right? You can do it. What has come up in your life? What are you
Mhm,
avoiding? You can handle it.
mm,
I have 100% faith. Let's do it,
mm.
you know? And it's a really, isn't that the most potent relationship
I think,
that you
yeah,
can have? Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and it ties back into the whole integrity piece too of
Mhm.
right. I hold like I know that I can handle anything within me, and therefore I know that you can handle anything within
Yes.
you. You know, I
Yes.
know that I create when I speak, and I know that you create when you speak, and just that
Yes.
full knowing. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I'm reflecting back, and that's absolutely what I feel I get from JP as well as just
Mhm.
a there's and I've noticed it's like, oh, I don't want to go here, and then it's like, oh no, let's just go here, let's just
Right.
go right into the crucible of it, and it's like, oh wow, I thought this is the thing that we'd have to like edge up to really closely or something, and
Because
no,
that's what I've been
going
doing. I've been
yeah,
skirting around the edge,
right,
right?
we're gonna go right in, we're gonna just blow it up and just see what happens. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Let's just put the blinder light on,
mm-hmm.
shine a light
Mm-hmm.
on it.
Yep,
Yeah, but that's love, right?
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
absence of fear, right? That's
yeah.
and you've heard me say that I think, fear is a protective force that's also driven by love, right? But
Mm,
when we're with somebody that can hold us, that's what I feel like coaching is. It's like I'm just holding your hand while we look at stuff,
mhm.
and I'll tell you what I see if
Yeah,
that would be useful,
yeah,
you know? And I'll bring my practice of unconditional loving regard and looking for the beauty, you
yeah,
know, to everything we talk about. And
yeah.
then you can bring that out into your life. Yeah. Yeah. So let's finish this up by talking about why you love coaching. Like, what is so great about being a coach? What do you love helping people with? What about the experience do you
Mm,
love that keeps you going?
yeah. Yeah. To me, it's art.
Mm.
It's painting, and it's using people's experiences as the color on the palette. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and we get to create amazing frames and perspectives
Yeah.
together that they all look unique, right? They
Uh-huh.
all might have some of the same foundational elements of
Yeah.
presence and love uh, and taking action and serving one's higher self rather than their lower self, and uh, but they all look very different. And yeah, it's almost like working with paint and also working with like a Rubik's cube at the same time, or like a jigsaw,
It's
right?
kind of like that.
Yeah, it's just so fun, and it's all invisible. It's all very invisible,
Yeah.
and it it's all so deeply tied into to me as well. It's not like I'm sitting someplace with answers, uh,
Yeah.
but rather I'm sitting someplace with a commitment
Yeah.
of who I'm committed to being in the face of this quote unquote problem.
Yeah.
And I get to practice that and further refine the sword that I use to slice through illusion and
Yeah.
slice through the noise. And I get to then take that and use it in my own life as well. And I mean, really, like, to that end, my clients teach me so much
Yeah.
about being a better human being,
Mhm.
just through what we create together, because uh, their brilliance comes out, and I sometimes feel just as, I mean, I feel sometimes more mind blown by what's being created than even they do at times. It can absolutely
Yes.
happen, right? Like,
Yes.
and I also get it's so fascinating to watch how I will attract certain clients into my life that hold some type of key to something
Uh-huh.
that's also been alive for me on some level. And
Right.
so,
Right.
yeah, it's just, what it's a fascinating and a very humbling position to be in, that is it further it further allows me to look at all of my clients with real attention, respect, and curiosity, because of how I'm going to be surprised by them, and surprised
Yes.
by their brilliance, and surprised by what they're up to. That's what
Yes.
I love about it, is being around, in a nutshell, amazing people who have a commitment to do the work on themselves, where I get to learn and grow with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I am reminded how much and I learned this from hosting women's circles and
Mm,
hearing, 10 women speak um over a couple hours, and how similar we all are, right? Similar our experiences all are. It can be all different circumstances, right? But sad feels sad and happy feels happy, and so many distinctions, right, can apply to all of us, right? That's why this coaching thing works, is that the more we gather, the more distinctions we create and understanding we have of what this human experience is, right, the better we can serve other people. And it's so true, the more people we serve, the more wisdom we gather,
totally.
right, that is their wisdom, right, that rubs
Yeah.
off on us. It's
Yes.
such a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said.
Well, thank you so much for such a wonderful conversation. I knew it would be a
Yeah.
deep one.
Yeah, me too. I knew it was going to be deep. I didn't know that we were going to cover so much and go down some of these rabbit holes, and it's great. Very,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I'm walking away with some ideas for content and insights, and yeah, all that. So
Oh, that's wonderful.
thank you for having me, and such great questions.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Talk soon.
See ya.